Good. You're Dennis Willie?
Yeah, that's right.
And we're over here in Wethersfield, I guess.
Well, actually Cavendish.
Cavendish?
Pretty close to the line.
Close to the line. And you've got a couple friends here.
Yeah.
Just like part of the family, I'm sure.
Yeah, these are two Percheron horses, draft horses, and this is King, and that's Ben there.
Ben.
Yeah.
What's a typical day with the horses consist of with you?
A lot of work.
Have breakfast, lunch, and dinner like we do?
Yeah, I bring them a lunch. This morning I fed them at 5:30, went out and gave them oats and gave them their grain, and then they'll eat that, then go out again, give them some hay, and give them some water, and get them ready, and get myself something. And get up about 4:30, you can get in the woods about 8 o'clock.
And do you use some voice commands with these horses?
Yeah, I use voice commands with most everything I do with them. But you have to rein them generally as a team because you put two horses together, and they act a little different generally than single.
How steep a grade would you say they can negotiate? I know it would make a difference with the size of the wood that you're pulling, but...
Well, going uphill, generally you try to avoid that with loads. You try to avoid going uphill as much as you can. But if I was going uphill, I generally say if I can walk up it, so can't they. So, but coming down, you've got to be careful on your type of loads that you go through. I've got a small, this has been all uphill mostly on this job for a good share of the draw, but it's probably a, I'd call a 412 pitch maybe at best in places probably. You know, that'd be a 4% grade or somewhere in there maybe.
So you're getting ready to head this direction with them to pick up some wood?
Yeah.
Well, you've got some pieces out here that you've cut up already with the saw, and
yeah,
it's got to be tossed to one side a little bit before they go through.
Yeah, I've got some more. We're just making this road here into a new area. Yeah, there's a lot of preparation work. It's not just all falling trees and pulling timber. You've got to make a trail, and we said earlier, choose your trail and the best route and terrain that you can find. And there's a lot of dead stuff that's already been previously blown down sometimes, and different areas of woods are different. And well, anyway, we're going to drop one of these trees here and try to haul them out. I got my other cart. I have two carts that I use to haul logs with right now. One's sort of a low boy, more that I can ride on, and the other one's a high arch rig that I usually walk behind. I usually don't pull much more than 150 feet or around there with my low arch rig. Usually use smaller logs, and these are pretty good sized trees on a 16-foot log will be for the first trip out through here that be a little bit rougher.
And you'll cut it to length right here?
Yeah, I'll sometimes cut two logs if it's terrain's good. I might cut a 32, 33 log and cut 2 16s out of it, or 24, and then cut them out there. But they're marked, and usually there isn't much waste out on the landing because they're cut to length in the woods pretty much. So
this particular tree here, if that's a 16-inch, a 16-foot log here would probably be about 130 feet.
Yeah, pretty close to it.
So that's about a 16-footer would be the limit.
Yeah,
for what
that's about the diameter. The height of the draft on that is pretty low, and the logs will dig in. And being that the trail isn't made through yet, there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to be rooting through the first time, especially with that cat.
So kind of level itself and cut down the hummocks and the little roots that are in the way and things like that.
Right, might be roots and stones and stumps, even though we clipped the top of them.
And then the horses will be more sure of themselves after they've been on it a couple times too.
Yeah, they'll get their foot and know where to step and where the bad spots are and things too.
Do you always hook to the butt, or doesn't it make that much difference? So.
No, I don't always. Wherever I can get a hold of it, generally. It depends on the type of log it is and where it is. Sometimes I'll hitch to the top, but generally I do grab them from the butt side, from the big end of them.
And of course, it's probably more important here, although it should be important with machinery all the time, that all the limbs get cut nice and flush, because you don't want any extra friction.
No, that's right.
You're not trying to
That's right.
like plow a garden with the stubs or anything.
You gotta limb them out so they're smooth, and the mills like them manufactured well too, without having much protrusion on them.
And a butt flare.
Yeah, I trim all your butt flares off, and it's when you drop a tree with horses, you have to watch out. A lot of time a big pine limb will go right down into the ground and anchor that tree right down. You have them all cut, but that one, it'll look like the log should move, but there might be a big limb that's pinned it right to the ground.
So you're going to drop this one here?
Yeah, we're going to drop, I think, this one. King! Whoa, Ben. Step ahead. King, no! Ahead! Hey! You two things too long. Get ahead. Get in. Get in with me. Oh. Bring back. Whoop! Back. Whoop! I probably should have hit them to one of them big trees. This ain't nothing, this is popcorn. That hook's already bent out. Step up easy, guys. King, right up to it. Come around the hall, man. Step the hall. You can step the
Time for lunch?
Yeah, time for lunch.
And then you'll be right at it again this afternoon?
Yeah, we'll got some...
So you'll get out an average of what
Oh.
a day?
1,500 to 2,000 a day. Like,
Depending on
as long
distance
as it,
and condition
yeah,
and everything.
distance and conditions. Everything goes smooth. And first day, like open up a new spot, and thing is a lot more time involved. But generally, I do at least 1,500 a day. It's pretty good average, I guess.
Now you also play some music and
Yeah.
and do some woodworking.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And the type of woodworking you do is furniture, or?
Yeah, it's pretty varied. I do furniture, I do building construction too, or used to. So I do this most of the time now, but last year we built a big place down in Downers Corner. Yeah, I like doing woodworking.
Well, that's good. It's all connected to the woods industry, and there's
Right.
plenty of wood here in Vermont, and it's good to be making
Yeah.
use of it and stuff. Well, I certainly appreciate you spending
you.
time with us
Yeah.
here, and we'll see you again someday.
All right.
Sure.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, he's not here yet, but expect him any minute. In fact, he's 5 minutes late. Here he comes right now.
You're on the phone.
Yeah, but it's for you.
Oh. Hello. Bruin. Hi. Oh. Well, why don't you... Yes. You call Mother Merritt, and you head over there to see her, and I'll be over there just as soon as I can. Okay. Bye.
How's that reception? Good? Out here?
Fine. Welcome to Vermont Forest. It's now September, and I'm here with Bennington County Forester Jim White. And what do we got to look forward to this month, Jim?
Okay. The fall webworm, those big ugly nests that you see on roadside trees are still growing in size, but they really don't hurt the tree because the leaves have done all their work by this time, and they look ugly, but they don't have any effect on the tree. And the goldenrods are still yellow and still being fed on the last plants. Asters and goldenrods are the last plants fed on by the honeybees.
Then in the second week of September, the fall migration of our most common raptor, the broad-winged hawk, starts. And then the two common jewel weeds, which are also known as touch-me-nots. They grow in kind of a damp, rich soil. They have these little seed pods.
Seed pods, yeah.
Some of the flowers are orange and some are yellow. And if they're touched or disturbed the least little bit, they kind of explode and throw their seed around. Have a lot of fun showing those to people if they aren't familiar with them.
Oh yeah, and the juvenile killdeer head south. They're now common nesters here. The killdeer were rare migrants at the turn of the century due to excessive hunting. In fact, a group of 8 or 10 of them just flew by us before we started filming. Heavy rains between now and November will trigger brown trout to leave lakes and migrate upstream to spawn.
And in the fourth week of September, a hardy species, green-winged teals that breed north of Vermont, may migrate through this area in September, October, and as late as December even. And hardy robins may fatten up on black cherries before they head south. And that's what we have to look forward to from our friends at Vermont Woodlands for September. And this month, we've got so many things to do. I don't know how we're going to get them all fit in. We're finishing up the horse logging, which we've just seen, and we're going to be talking about some mushrooms. And mushrooms and mushrooms. There's so many things on them, and Jim, you're just like a mushroom. You're a fun guy.
Gee.
And then we're also going to look up on Mount Equinox, some air sampling that takes place for the National Forest or the Liebrook Wilderness. And then there are those
Windmills.
whirligigs.
Yeah.
And where are we going to see those?
Searsburg. In fact, they call it Mount Waldo in Searsburg. It's a new name of a mountain. I think Waldo Holden, his family was from Bennington, owned the property, and somehow it just got tagged Mount Waldo.
Well,
That's a
no.
great trip for day trip for somebody that just wants to take a drive from Bennington or Manchester to go and see the windmills on. Just make sure there's a high ceiling that day so they can see the top
Very
of the mountain.
impressive.
Yeah.
Well, we've got so many things to do this month. Probably better get going, and I've got to go see Bruin. He sounded quite upset.
Okay.
Okay, Jim.
See you on TV, Claude.
Hello, is this the operator? Yeah. I'd like to make a bear-to-person call to Mother Merrick.
Hello?
Hello, Mother Merrick.
Hello, Bruin.
Mother Merrick, I just got a long letter, and I'm very confused. May I come over and see you, and we can talk about it?
Oh, certainly, Bruin. I'll meet you at the log bench in half an hour.
The log bench in a half an hour?
Yep.
I'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye. Dear John, but my name's Bruin. Buzz off. But I'm not a bee, I can't buzz. Your taste in housing is atrocious. I have met a wonderful sultan. What's a sultan? Sorry, things didn't work out for us. Goodbye, you big teddy bear. At least she knows I'm a bear. Ms. Linda. What does this mean? Does this mean I've been dumped?
Yeah, exactly, Bruin. You got it.
Oh my, what am I gonna do? Well, I can say one thing, I'm sure glad I didn't sell my cave and buy that house yet. Well, I'll get over it. Yeah, my great power of concentration will see me through. For example, oh, hi Claude, how are
Hi,
you?
Bruin. Hi, Mother Mary.
Hi, how are you today?
Can I join you here?
What? Sure. Did you hear the bad news, Claude?
No, what's that, Bruin?
I've been buzzed off by a bee. I mean, I've been dumped.
Dump.
Yeah,
By
Miss.
a bee?
Well, no, Miss Linda. She dumped me. She told me to buzz off and get lost and whatever. I'm gonna get over it. With my power of concentration, for example. That's what I was just saying before you came in. But here you go, and everybody out there in TV land also. You can join in. I'll show you how powerful my concentration is. Now, listen real carefully. I want you to pick a number from 1 to 10, but don't tell me. 1 to 10. Pick a number 1 to 10. You got your number, Claude? Mother Merrick, you got your number? Okay. No, don't tell me. Now, multiply that number by 9. Okay? And multiply that number by 9. Everybody out there in TV land, multiply it by 9. Okay. And add together the digits of that answer. Okay, you add the two numbers together, the digits of that answer. Okay, you did that? Everybody out there? Okay. Now subtract 4. Take 4 away from that. Got that? Okay. And let that number represent the number of the alphabet. For example, A would be number 1, B would be number 2, C would be number 3. You got the idea? Okay. Now, I will concentrate very hard. The number that you got, turn that number into a letter and think of an animal that begins with the letter that you got. And I can tell you what the answer is. You guys ready? Everybody out there? Okay, you did all the adding and subtracting and multiplying. You got the letter. And I bet you're thinking of an elephant.
What?
How did you do that?
Ha! I told you. Power of concentration. That's how I'll get through this. Yep.
What?
That is fantastic.
Well, I got a whole bunch of other tricks, too.
How else do you use your concentration, Bruin?
I use my concentrations on tongue movements to eat ants and grubs. I can do all sorts of tongue movements. Want to see?
Sure.
Okay, let's go
to
get
teach
some.
us?
Let's go get some ants and grubs, and I'll show you my tongue movements.
say, you got to be real careful with your tongue so you can pull the bark away. And that's what I mean by concentration with your tongue, see? That's how you pull the bark away. Yep, that's how you do it.
And then that's how you get all the grubs. They all come out, see? And all the ants and all the little worms, and then you just get them right with your tongue and just lick them right up. Boy, that's pretty good. There goes one. I got away. Oh, my tongue wasn't fast enough. See what I mean? See what I mean? Yeah, see? It's real good, yeah. You just lick them right up. Oh, boy, that's yeah, very good. Oh, yeah. Let's see. I can smell some more around. Oh. Yeah, there's a worm there and everything else. Oh, boy, see? Oh, boy, oh, I can get that. Oh, yeah, boy, is that good. Oh, boy, I'm telling you. Oh, yeah, that's, oh, boy, this is tasty. See, that's how you get down into that crack there, where you just lick it right all up. Oh, yeah, oh, boy. Yeah, I smell something more, some other stuff down in there, too. I can tell it, oh, it tastes, oh, boy, is that good. See, that's how you get your nose right in there and just peel that bark right back. Yep, Yep, that's how you do it. That's the best way to do it. Oh, boy, I'm telling you. Oh. We ought to throw these grubs in here. They're delicious. Oh, boy. Tricky tongue.
Oh, yeah, boy, is that good. Oh, I'm telling you. Yes, indeed. Oh, boy. Just eat one. Eat. Oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy. Oh, boy, yeah, all sorts of grubs and things in here. Yeah, oh, boy. Yep, I can do this all day long. I come back for some more. Yeah, oh, let's see. Oh, yep, there we go.
Well, yeah, like I said, you gotta be able to concentrate on rolling your tongues around in your mouth, see? And your concentration, you can flip them all the way over on the other side. Just roll them, yeah, whatever, it's got it pretty good. Let's see how Claude's doing. Yeah, it's rolling, it's got it. And see, that's how you get the ants and everything, yep. You just gotta be real careful. Oh, look at you, it's upside down. Yeah, oh, Claude's got his upside down, too. Oh, boy, I tell you, isn't that fun? It takes a lot of concentration. You see, then all your worries go around. How's your tongue? You get it all the way up? Oh, she did it. That's all the way around. Let's see. Claude's is working on his, too. There he goes. It's almost all the way around. Bite your tongue, Claude. It's so much fun. I have so much fun doing this. Yeah, I do. Let's see. Claude, it's still... his is stuck upside down. Oh, Claude. That hurts real well. Yep. But Claude's still struggling with his. It's still upside down. I think Claude's going to end up eating his tongue is what he's going to do. Well, I'll have to show you how to do that. Well, I did over there. Oh, I got it. Yay. Good, Claude. See? It takes a lot of concentration, doesn't it? No, I get tongue-tied when I do this kind of stuff. I do. I get tongue-tied. It just goes so fast. How about you guys? Are you guys tongue-tied too? Oh, Claude's tongue-tied. You gotta split your tongues. Oh, you guys, I'm telling you. All these tongues. Oh, boy. Got your tongue-tied. Talk about a tongue twister. Could you say... 10 tongues tied at a time, bot.
Hi, you're Al Bell with the U.S. Forest Service, and we're on a little equinox. Yeah. And we're at the site, I guess, where one of the 4 windmills used to be up here. And you have a job of coming up here every so often to check different measurements on air quality to be representative of what the Liebrook Wilderness area, which lies east of here.
Yeah, that's correct. We have a site right over this little wise in this building over here that measures air quality for the Liebrook Wilderness, which is a piece of land just over on the other side of Route 7 over here. And because of the Clean Air Act, we've been monitoring the Liebrook area as wilderness has been designated as a Class 1 airshed.
this is at an elevation of about 3,000 feet,
Yes,
perhaps?
it's close to 3,000 feet.
And are there any monitors in the Liebrook area itself?
No monitors in the Liebrook area itself. However, there are other individuals in Vermont that are doing cooperative monitoring on amphibians and certain types of plant life in the wilderness itself.
And you have another air sampling site off the Kelly Stand Road, I believe?
Yes, it's called a CastNet site. It's run by the Environmental Protection Agency, and it's under contract operator.
So you don't do the readings down
I
there?
myself don't do the actual readings. However, we're charged with the responsibility of upkeep of the equipment and keeping the site usable.
And how often do you have to come here to do this monitoring?
I come up here once a week, all year round. I have some filters to change, and I have to come up here whether there's 20 feet of snow or 30 below.
And then some of this data, the things you gather, gets sent all over the country to be analyzed?
Yes, the filters get sent to a lab out in Davis, California, where they run it through an accelerator, spectral analysis, and that gives them the types of materials that are in the air. They measure things like the sulfur dioxide content, nitrogen content, and various other particulate matter that is indicative of the amount of pollution in the air.
Well, should we take a walk down here and take a look at the building?
Sure.
And what equipment you have there?
Sure. Here we are out at the nephelometer site, and we'll take a look at it, and right outside the building. And first, we have the to the left, little white round kind of cylinder there. That's the relative humidity and air temperature gauge that measures those items. And then we have the lightning rod up there. It's never been struck directly, but it's been had power surges through the line. And then the hood covering the actual nephelometer box is rain protection and element protection. And then what the nephelometer is, it's basically a box with a strobe light in it. And the strobe light reflects, the light reflects off the particulate matter in the air, and it creates these numerical values which are downloaded into the computer that's inside the building here. And by doing that, the people in Colorado who download the data can tell what the concentration of these elements are in the air. And on the front of the door of the nephelometer is a sensor for rain, and when we get a rain, what they call a rain event, rain shower, the door closes and protects the inside because it's rather sensitive, and they don't want to get a lot of rain with it inside the box itself. The box has a couple filters on it which filter out water vapor and dust and particles that might get inside. There's a screen on the front of the box that keeps particles out too. And that's basically what it is. The strobe light runs 2 minutes on, 3 minutes off throughout the course of the day and night, and measuring this particular matter in the air.
Well, we have the controls inside here that go along with this?
Yes, right inside the building here. We have the power module, which just takes normal power, and it's actually right now is run through two surge protectors. Because of the propensity for this mountain to get hit by lightning, there's surges through the line, and the nephelometer has actually been, well, damaged by lightning strikes in the last 2 years. So we have the power. Then we have a cell phone here, which through a modem downloads the data which the nephelometer is collecting all the time, and the contractor that's operating it is in Colorado, and so they just download the data continuously or at their convenience to monitor the site and the conditions. Down here is a tank of what's called span gas, which is used to calibrate the inside of the nephelometer when I do my calibrations weekly. And this here is a gauge which measures how much span gas is entering into the nephelometer itself. This device is the 21X micro logger, and it's like the brains of the operation. And what I measure, I take different calibrations, and for example, this is a measure of the different a calibration which tells them something to key off of for the when they calibrate their data. They get their data and then they have to measure it against a base, and so I take a couple readings on that, and then when after I run my span check, I take the readings again, and that gives them a base which to calibrate off of.
Most of the higher elevation ponds, there's no fish anymore.
Right. Yeah, it's a problem. And hopefully with our monitoring, again, everything's done through the legislative process, but the agencies are charged with, in our case, the Forest Service, with knowing what is going on so that recommendations can be made for, well, improving the environment for everybody. The pollutants that are in the air are damaging to humans too, so it behooves us all to find out at least what's out there and then try and bring down the levels.
Well, thank you very much, Hal, for sharing this information with us. And
Okay.
it certainly is a point that is not known by many people, that things like this take place, and yet they have a very important part in trying to evaluate and plan for the future what we need to do to protect what we have.
Well, it's been my pleasure, and if anybody wants further information, they can contact the Green Mountain National Forest, either the supervisor's office in Rutland or the Manchester District, which I'm a part of, and I'll be glad to give them some information on what we do here.
Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Here we are in Searsburg on a nice sunny September afternoon, and you're John Zimmerman and with the Green Mountain Power, and you've worked on this project of the windmills since it first was thought of, and worked with other windmills throughout the state and stuff for, I think you said, like 20-some years.
Yes, that's right, Claude. We actually, I've worked for Green Mountain Power since in 1979, and much of that work over the years has been on their wind energy program. And most recently, I was the project manager for this plant here, including all the permitting work and development work up to that, and then overseeing the construction, which was actually done by the California firm who supplies the wind turbines. The total cost was around $10.5 million. That's including all the cost up through the years that we hadn't allocated to any one project yet. And it's a 6 megawatt project, and it's anticipated to produce around 14 million kilowatt hours of electric energy in an average wind year, and that's approximately the same requirements for the average household requirements for 2,000 homes, to put it in perspective.
There were several things that went into the selection of this site, I suppose. Accessibility, wind, and
Yeah, environmental acceptability was another one. Access, proximity to existing access roads and transmission lines. It's expensive to build access roads and transmission lines, both in dollar costs and environmental costs. And here we're within half a mile of each to get up to the top of the hill.
well, these windmills certainly are visible from the main highway here, but it's quite overwhelming to all of a sudden see these on the horizon. It's just amazing.
Yeah, most people have that same feeling, as did I when I came up over Route 8 here, and you all at once round a corner and there they are on the skyline. They are quite impressive from that location.
What would the dimension be of, like, the height of a tower and the length of a blade?
Well, the turbines are mounted on 132-foot tall towers. The rotor diameter is also 132 feet. They weigh approximately 120,000 pounds, and half of that's in the tower, and half of it's in what's on top of the tower, the turbine and the rotor assembly.
And I guess a lot of the technology that's used here maybe originated in California or a California firm, but then it kind of had to get fine-tuned to the Vermont winters. And
Well, yeah, that's right. These turbines are manufactured by Zond. They are some of the first turbines manufactured by Zond, though Zond, as a company, has been in the business of operating and building wind power plants for 10 years or more. And they are very good at it, and they've learned how to operate and maintain turbines. They're still doing that today. In the process of doing that, they learned about what their wish list would be if they've ever built a turbine themselves, how they would make it easier to maintain, therefore cheaper to maintain. And this is a product of that past experience that they've had.
well, the history of wind power in Vermont, I guess, dates back to Grandpa's Knob. Is that Castleton?
Certainly large utility projects date back to that project, yes.
And that, I guess, was not very successful at all. I guess they used some parts of aircraft or things on it and came crashing down in ice storms.
Yeah, well, I guess in one sense, in the sense that it's no longer there and it never really panned out economically, it was not a success. But in the sense that it really set the framework for understanding the wind resource here in Vermont, for sure, New England in general, I think it did have a lot of beneficial impacts. We've acquired all that data ourselves in the early 80s and have studied that, and that has helped us choose sites, for instance. That was how we got into that. Those turbines provided some valuable information on how the turbine structurally could stand up to the rigors of the Vermont environment. Ice accumulating on the blades is a major one. And the experience we gained there on Equinox was transferred in large part to here. The most obvious one that people can see is when we put up our turbines on Equinox, they were the only ones in the world with black rotor blades. And they were coated black, special black coating to absorb the sun's energy to better defrost them in the winter. And here you see that we've incorporated the black rotor blades in these machines as well. This project did involve constructing a substation, which is what you're seeing right here in front of us. Out behind it, there's a 1.5 miles of new 69 kilovolt transmission line that was built off the road. It parallels existing town road, but is built off it, so we didn't have to cut the trees down right beside the road. The project includes constructing also about 1.5 miles of road, which will go up in a second when we go up to see the wind turbines. All told, it required, with all that construction, it only required clearing about 35 acres in the middle of what's about a 280-acre privately owned parcel of forest land.
Well, should we go up the mountain and see what there is up there?
Yep, you'll be impressed with that.
I'm sure.
I'm really looking forward to showing you one of my favorite mushroom places.
Well, you're Marjorie Lutz, and you're from
Yes.
Albany now, I believe. Or
Well, now I
Albany
live
area?
in the Albany area, but I'm from Shushan for many years,
Shushan.
about 25 years.
And you've
over
spent
27 or 8 years.
a lot of time in Vermont forests looking around for
Well,
mushrooms.
Vermont was more my home than Shushan, really. All my life was here, and mushrooms, I was looking for mushrooms everywhere. I mean, you know, any place that didn't have a posted sign, I was in there looking for mushrooms.
And you've told me some stories at times of not just accumulating a few like this, but grocery bags full.
Oh, yes, absolutely, yes. As a matter of fact, it was a funny thing that one time I was visiting my grandchildren in New Jersey, and there was a little place in the suburbs, a little narrow place between two driveways where they hadn't done anything. And there were some trees and some weeds and all that, and I looked in there, and there was the telltale sign of a bright chanterelle, egg yolk yellow. And I went in there and picked all I could carry and came back with 2 shopping bags and filled them both with the most delicious, wonderful chanterelles.
And these are what some of the best restaurants serve?
As a matter of fact, I sold them to some of the best restaurants in that area, yeah, down near Summit.
And they command a pretty good price, I guess, the proper ones.
Well, I think I really gouged them at that point. I figured, well, let's see what we can get. And I was charging $120 a pound. And they bought them. That was the surprising part.
That's a nice little experience for a morning's walk in the backyard.
Indeed, yes, that's right.
Well, let's go and see what we can find around here.
Okay, good. And this is one of the nicest places for blackberries.
The blackberries are
raspberries.
behind this year too because it's so dry.
Yeah, yeah. We're entering an area now where I very often find good mushrooms. Ha! Look, there's one right there.
There are a lot of hemlock trees right here.
Yeah, hemlock is a good place to look for mushrooms. Hemlock and pine, oak, elm. Now, what I do is bring out my big sturdy knife here and go way under this mushroom to pick it up, make sure I get the whole thing. Ah, I thought it was. The whole thing you need for identification, the very bottom where it starts. This particular little guy is usually, it's a little washed out right now. It's usually kind of ruddy on top, and you see the gills are kind of rosy. As it matures, it gets purpley black. This happens to be a mushroom that we can buy in the grocery store. It's called a portobello, and it's also called the Stropharia robusto annulata. Stropharia is the name of the genus, which is a grouping, a family grouping of mushrooms. And the robusto annulata is the name of the species, called because the cap is usually ruddy red or slightly ruddy reddish, and because of this little annulus, this little ring here, fluffy stuff. It's always on this particular one, it's always large and soft and fluffy. And when it's very young, it's even got little, I mean, it's joined to the cap as the cap is in like that.
That ring was attached to the edge here, right?
Yeah.
Like it was a button mushroom.
That's right, in the very young, before it grows up and expands. And that little ring has little points sticking out on it when it's young and fresh. It's really quite a beautiful ring. Now, if I'm going to save this, what I do is use wax paper. And the wax paper breathes. It doesn't soak up the moisture in the mushroom, and it doesn't rot the mushroom like plastic would. So I use paper. Now I'm going to, I would save this for the kitchen pot, for cooking up. This is a good mushroom for that. Lay it in the middle of your wax paper, roll it up, and twist the ends. And then drop it in your basket, and there you are. Don't forget your knife. I've lost more good knives that way.
Those would continue to grow to the size that you see in the store? Or
No.
not necessarily?
No, this is the size that it would be. In this location, it probably would not get any bigger than this because the substrate, what it grows in, is not strong enough nutrient to make it grow great big like the commercial ones.
And where this, Rose, is there a good chance here that in a few weeks there'll be more than here?
It's possible. Now, what we're really talking about here is what makes a mushroom grow. The reason why it's called mycology, the reason why I'm called a mycologist, is because of these little tiny white threads that grow. Can you see those little white threads there?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. That grows from the bottom of a mushroom, and that really is the major part of the mushroom. That's the tree,
The
so to
tree root.
speak. That's the tree root. And the mushroom that we see fruiting is the, like the apple on the tree, it's just the fruit. But this is the major part of the mushroom, and that's what does its job of rotting old vegetation and that sort of thing. This is the base of one of those that we just picked up. But that's mycelium, and that's why it's called mycology. I'll just leave this here so that it can go back into the ground and make more of them. Mushrooms grow and multiply by those mycelium growing and multiplying, but also by the spores that are under the gills there that we saw.
And those become airborne.
And they become airborne. In fact, very easily airborne. They can also be eaten by animals and dropped in their feces. But you find mushroom spores in the very highest stratosphere, blowing along with the winds.
An example of that we see is the, I guess it's some type of a little puffball that when you step on it, the brown cloud comes out.
Yes.
That's
And that's
the
a good
spores
example of
leaving.
it, yeah.
That's very visible.
That's a very visible example of it, yeah. Let's see what else we can find. I think I saw one here as we were coming in too. Just a little, let's see. You know, mushrooms, unless you are looking for them, unless you sort of are aware that they're here, are hard to find. Now, this one is one that I like very much. This is a rusula. Now, the rusula is almost always white, very regular gills. You see how regular those gills are? This has been a little eaten up, so it's uneven. And the stem is almost always white and a little brittle. Oh, there's a little friend in there eating up, having his breakfast. Now, if you were to listen very carefully when you break the stem of a rusula,
Snap. Oh yeah.
snap,
Crispy.
crispy,
Like celery or something.
like a piece of chalk. Yeah, not quite as loud as a piece of chalk. This particular one, I can tell by the color of the cap, is one of the edibles, and it's a good one too. It's a very good edible. Now, if we were going to keep this, I'd roll it in the wax paper again, but I won't bother to do that right now. I'll put it right back in the ground, break it up a little bit so that it can multiply, and wish it well and grow and multiply, pretty mushroom. See what else
And
we
that
can
could
find.
grow and multiply quick enough that in 2 or 3 weeks there might be something, or not till
Probably
another
not
season?
this season.
Another season.
Probably not this season, but maybe. You never know.
Definitely. I found some here. These don't look very good.
Ah, okay, good. Let's see what that is.
You really have to develop an eye
Yeah, you really
to
do.
see these. It's very easy to go by them.
Yeah, Now, let's see what this one looks like all over. Oh, this has a big base. It has an annulus. See the little bit of an annulus that's left there, the ring? White gills, And the white gills are separate from the stem. You can see the top of the stem that goes all the way up.
Okay.
And it's separate. That's one of the identifying features. Oh, now this one happens to be kind of thready here. And that is an identifying feature too. It's kind of thready around the base. And to tell you the truth, I can't remember what this is. It could be one of the amanitas, but I don't think so because of that threadiness. I thought it would have a cup underneath. The amanitas, there are some that, yeah, okay, here's another one that's, yeah, okay. That's definitely not an amanita. This may be an entoloma. Now, most of the entolomas are poisonous. And as the gills grow and as the spores mature, it turns pink on the bottom. The stem looks like entoloma. The entolomas usually have a kind of slippery look to them, and they usually have this little knob on the top. You can see the modified knob on the older one there. But I'd have to do a little bit more research to tell you exactly what this is. Yeah, that looks a little entoloma-ish too. Now, this one has a rather clubbed foot, and if it weren't for the fact that these gills are separate from the stem, if the gills came down the stem, it would be a clitosoby, and that might be a clitosoby clavipes, club-footed clitosoby. But it's not. And that's because of the gill attachment. You see the way that cap is separate from the stem?
Yes.
Uh-huh. The gills go right up underneath there, and they form a little, almost a trough around the stem, so that the gills are not attached to the stem. Hey, that's a good eye, spotting that one.
And that one really blends in.
Yeah, it does. I'll just leave it there and see what happens. See what grows from it. Okay, there's another little white one back there. Let's see what that is. Well, I was talking about a clitosoby. Here's a clitosoby. Aha! Now, with this one, you can see how the gills run down the stem.
Oh, yes.
Uh-huh. And that is another characteristic of this genus. White gills, usually white spores, and the gills that run down the stem. Many of the clitosobies are good and edible, some of them are not. You really have to know the difference, know which one is which. I don't know which this one is. If it were a little more cracked on top, I would say it might be the Dalbata. The Dalbata happens to be one that, it's called a sweating mushroom. Makes you sweat, and it's called poisonous. I don't think it's deadly, but I would not eat it anyway. It's pretty, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but this type would, for someone that isn't an authority on them, should be avoided?
Yeah.
Probably?
One should always avoid mushrooms, eating mushrooms, wild mushrooms, unless you know what they are. And knowing what they are is a matter of paying attention to what you're looking at and checking it with your books.
But there's some that aren't easily confused with others, where there's some that have some with very,
That's right.
very small differences, probably.
Well, there are a lot of them that are not easily confused, and you can tell the difference by certain specific ways. Others, you can't tell the difference unless you see them under a microscope and check out the spore shape and all that, or the shape of the hyphae, which is the stuff that grows inside the cap. Oh, yes! Oh, ta-da! I'm liable to flip it right out of my hand. This is the prize.
That's the bull.
This is the Boletus edulus. In France, it's called the Seps. In German, it's called the Steinpilz. In England, it's called a penny bun. You see, it looks like a little bun that's roasted to perfection on top.
Mm-hmm.
And it has, if you look closely, you can see this very, very pale kind of netting on the stem. You can see it up there a little bit closer, a little bit better. It's very pale and it's very delicate. Netting, it's called reticulation. And the underneath is white when it's young. It's got pores, not gills, as you can see. All the Boletus family has pores instead of gills, and there are a lot of, it's the Familia Boletaceae that has several other genuses within it. And you might find some of those, but this happens to be the genus Boletus also. It has pores. It's white when it's young. When it gets older and mature, it gets yellowy or brownish. But it's the white, very, very pale reticulation and the penny bun color. This is a really good edible. I mean, you know.
And it's edible, the cap and the stalk?
Oh yes, the whole thing. Yeah, all you do is just trim off the little stuff from the bottom here. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do that. I'm going to take this off because it might have some mycelium left in it. And I'm going to just put it under the leaves here so that it can have a better chance of regenerating. Yeah. Any more of these? Once you find one, you're liable to find more. Aha! Yes. This is a bolete. You see the pores underneath, but that's bright red underneath. And that says, beware, don't eat me. And the only boletes that are poisonous are the ones that are bright red or orange underneath. And this one, watch as I cut it open. It's going to stain blue.
Oh.
Immediately it stains blue.
Oh, it's colorful.
Yes, it is, isn't it? Uh-huh. Yeah.
The minute of contact with the air, right?
Yeah, the minute it contacts the air, yeah. I'll break this one again and look at how quickly it stains. Isn't that fascinating? Uh-huh. For beginners, a good guide is don't eat a bolete that stains blue. There are lots of boletes that are good to eat, but as a beginner, when you're learning, it's a good idea to follow that general rule, and then you'll be safe with boletes. Because these are the only poisonous boletes, the ones that are red or orange on the bottom and stain blue.
My goodness.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
The colors that are involved with that right there.
Intense, beautiful colors, aren't they? Yeah. They really excite me, these mushrooms. They're so beautiful.
Right there you see.
Oh yeah. That looks like the Deobata again.
Looks like some very, very small start of some coming out.
Yeah, that's more of the same thing. This is a very young mushroom. It's just beginning. And this is that same Clitosobe that we saw over there.
That the gills come down onto the stem.
The gills come down on the stem, yeah. And the top looks more like a Deobata because it's a little bit more crackled and it's a little discolored, but it's kind of a dull white. It's not a shiny white at all. It's a very dull texture.
These look something a little bit different.
Oh, those are a little different, aren't they? Yeah. Let's see what that. Uh-huh. Pretty. Oh, yes. Uh-huh. Well, it's hard to tell what this is at this age. If I had found some mature ones nearby, I would be able to tell for sure. It's kind of grayish underneath, which surprises me. I thought it'd be white underneath. Grayish on top. It's definitely not a Clitosobe because the gills are separate from the stem, as you can see, as we saw before. Well, that's an interesting species. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that along in order to study it. And anything that I am not absolutely sure of, I will wrap separately because we don't want any little pieces of a poisonous mushroom getting in with the edible mushrooms. That would be bad news. So we